guests, and I have some exciting guests coming up to include Robert Washington. He
Yeah.
is a husband, father of 5 boys. That's crazy. A U.S. Navy veteran, a retired pro athlete, an award winning public speaker, entrepreneur, business owner, author, and inventor. And he's here to share with us the story of his near death moment, which really taught him how to live. So, this is going to be very fascinating and interesting. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you having me. And I love sharing my story to help and inspire other people. So thanks for having me.
All right, well, let's get into this. How did this near death moment happen?
Okay, so I'll rewind a little bit and I'll kind of, I know we talked a little bit about some of the things I've done in my life, but I'll share a little bit about my background to give you context on how my mindset actually put me in the position that I was in. So a little bit about my background. I was born and raised in not the most, I guess, uh, not the most perfect circumstances. I was born pretty much surrounded around drugs, violence. The city I was born in was a really rough city growing up. So my stepdad at the time, he was pretty involved with gangs and drugs and things of that nature. So I had a pretty tough upbringing. I was bullied a lot in school and all those type of things. That was normal to me, so that became my normal. So over the years, I started to develop a mindset as a child to become to prove other people's wrong. All right, so I was always out to show the world that I was better because I was always put down. It affected me in school and my relationships. I was always doing more than enough. So that translated, that kind of went over when I joined the military. The same thing kind of happened. Then I found mixed martial arts, and mixed martial arts. I was like, okay, this is perfect. Based on my upbringing, this is my time to prove to the world that I am valuable, right? So me even becoming a mixed martial artist, I was always intrigued with fighting and mixed martial arts. But the true reason why I became a fighter is because I wanted to prove to others that I did have value, even though within me, I should have never been doing that. I should have already known I had that value. So I went through this process of, trying to prove other people wrong instead of trying to prove myself right. So that kind of led, fast forward to my last mixed martial arts competition.
So,
So
how old are you? Sorry, how old are you at this point?
at this point, my last mixed martial arts competition, I was uh 30, it was 4 years ago, my last fought. So I'm 37 now. So I was 33. I
Okay.
had just I had just hit my 33rd birthday. So going into this fight, I knew I was on the tailor end of my career, but I wanted to kind of prove to the world that I had some value. So I went out and I read every, commentate and the commentary on the fight, every statistic on the fight, everything said I was going to lose. So all that negative information, I took it in and I said, well, you know what? I'm gonna prove everyone wrong, right? I'm gonna prove the world wrong that I do have value. So at the time, I was married. Me and my wife, we just had our well, we had our second child, but I have five total. I have custody of my three oldest kids. So I had a pretty busy household at the time also.
Were you
So
still in the Navy, or what are you doing what are you doing at this point?
so at the time I was actually out of the military. I was going to grad school full time. I was working a full-time job and I was fighting full-time with trying to balance a family. So I had a
Wow.
hectic lifestyle. So the fighting was all around, proving people wrong. So my priorities wasn't aligned as they should be at that time because I was focused on fighting and it was taken away from my family. So I was getting ready for the fight, and because I listened to all these negative things in the media, I actually trained harder than I ever trained before. So I was training, I think 3 to 4 times a day, 7 days a week. which is almost double what I used to train because I want to prove everyone wrong. Like I am valuable, I am a great fighter. And so one day I remember I walked into the house and I thought I was doing everything right. I was coming in, I was cooking, I was cleaning, I was helping the kids with their homework, but it was more like I was a robot. And my wife said, Robert, she said something to me. She said, we got into a little argument. She said, Robert, you're here, but you're not present. And I was like, huh? What do you mean by that? I'm doing all these things, right? I'm doing everything you want me to do. It's like, Robert, you're here, but you're not emotionally present. And so I didn't really understand that at that moment because I was so focused on, proving my doubters wrong. So I started, I continued to, prepare for the fight, and I got into the fight. And so I felt great going into the fight. Felt great. My mindset was strong. I felt great. In the second round of the fight, my coach kind of threw in the towel. He said, Robert, what's going on? Um, you're not reacting. You're not moving like you usually move. But my mind was like, I'm doing good. Like I thought I was doing good. So it never dawned on me that anything was going wrong. Coach threw in the towel. He stopped the fight. Um, I lay there on the mat, and my coach is like, Robert, get up. And I'm like, okay, I can't move. I can barely move. He said, come on, get up. You need to shake this guy's hand. You need to show some respect. And I'm like, I can't move. So then I was placed on a stretcher, rushed to the hospital. They put all these tonic machines. They strapped me up to all these heart monitor machines. First thing they did a CT scan of my heart. They said, your heart is like double the size of a regular heart. And so then after that, the doctor came back in and said, well, okay, we need you to pee in a cup. We see some irregular, something wasn't right with your kidneys. So I tried to pee in a cup. It took me like an hour and a half to pee. Once I urinated, my urine was black. So the doctor came back in. She said, Robert, you have this condition called rhabdomyolysis. And this condition is pretty much where the muscle fibers actually break down because of you overtraining. Those fibers flush through your kidneys, shut down your kidneys, and now your other organs are failing because of that. She's like,
Oh my
Robert,
God.
she pretty much told me if I would have went any longer, I was going into cardiac arrest. Like I was going to have a heart attack. So right at that moment, I think my whole life kind of came in front of my eyes, and I started to really start to like self-evaluate. You go through these, I guess, moments in our life where we're growing, we have these obstacles, but then we have to go and reevaluate our life. And then at that moment, I went and reevaluated my life. I really wanted to understand what was really important to me. And my whole life went in front of my eyes at that moment. Like I was in the hospital bed, and I was just like, wow, this all happened because of this. I knew exactly why this happened right at that moment. So then I started to really understand, like sit back and listen and understand, like, why was my wife saying these things to me? I wasn't aligned to my true purpose. I was aligned to this materialistic goal that was based off of me pleasing other people. And my true purpose was, that what's it's way bigger than just mixed martial arts, right? So at that moment, I had, like I said, I got closer to life because I started to listen not only to myself but to my spouse and others around me.
But how did that moment really made you realize that you've been spending all this time trying to prove yourself? Like you weren't loving yourself, you weren't appreciating yourself. Like I understand how others were reflecting back to you, like how you weren't present in their lives. But how did you make the transition that I'm not present for myself?
Because I guess the first thing I did was I I questioned myself right at that moment. I questioned, it was like a day or two after I started to question myself. I started to ask myself, why am I doing this? And then and how and what's important to me. So at that moment, I figured out, okay, what's important to you, Robert? My faith, my family, and my focus. How is mixed martial arts bringing me closer to these things? So I asked myself these serious questions that I had to be candid and I had to be real with myself to really identify, okay, where I'm at in my life, but more importantly, where am I trying to go? but how can I become closer to these things that I'm trying to reach? Being closer to my faith, being closer to my family, and being closer to my focus, which is to make an impact on this world, to help people, encourage people, inspire people. And I can do that through mixed martial arts, but it's mixed martial arts bringing me closer to my faith and my family, which it wasn't. So having those real questions with myself and awareness of where I'm at today, but more importantly, where I'm trying to go.
So how long were you in the hospital for?
So the hospital stay was pretty quick because it was almost acute renal failure, kidney failure. Um, I was only in the hospital probably 8 or 9 hours because they was able to get the fluids back into me and get my heart back into like a regular functioning. But um, uh, I was able to recover really, really, really fast. But I still have some conditions because of that. So I have to watch my creatine kinase levels all the time, and it was two to almost 4 months before I can actively work out after that moment. So after that moment, that's when I actually started speaking, because I wanted everyone to know, like, um, our minds are powerful tools, right? And I like to think of it this way. Think about this. My body was shutting down. My body was completely shutting down, but my mind wouldn't let my body quit. If you can think about that and think about, okay, my body is dying, but my mind is still working. That tells you how strong our minds are and how much we have to protect the information we put into our minds. So, and that to me was the biggest learning lesson of all. And also realigning yourself to what's important to you, but having those serious conversations with yourself and understanding, okay, what's important to you.
Yeah, that is so powerful and so insanely true. But
Yeah.
so when you got back, and how did you start making your shift? Like, what was the first steps towards shifting yourself back to the right alignment that you knew you
Mhm.
needed to be on?
So I had to go deep. I had to go deep, and I had to understand, why was I acting the way I was. So I went on this growth. I say growth because I had to. It got worse before it got better.
Yeah, because you have to let go of certain things. I
Yeah,
mean, you're still programmed way, so you have
yeah,
to,
I have to
let
yeah,
those things go.
yeah.
So I'm really glad you pointed that out, because that's the point. That's what I was trying to get at. Like,
Mm,
it kind of does get harder before it
mhm,
gets better,
mhm,
because you've been programmed like that for over 30 years, and now
mhm.
you have to
Exactly.
reprogram yourself,
Yeah,
and that's not easy.
that's not easy. So what I want to understand the science behind it, but first I want to go and fix myself, right? So what I did, and a lot of people, I might get sometimes I don't talk about it a lot because a lot of people look at it as a negative, but I went and seeked mental health treatment. So I went 16 weeks in an intensive outpatient mental health clinic because I want to understand why I was acting the way I was, but more importantly, what messages that I was given as a child that programmed me to think the way I thought, right?
Yeah.
And so I went super deep, like super deep. I mean, I walked into this clinic and the lady looked at me. Her name was Diane. She was 62 years old. She had been a mental health therapist for over, I think, 30 years. She looked at me. She knew exactly who I was. She told me that, Robert, you're codependent. And she gave me the definition of codependent. And then I started to understand, okay, what's a codependent? And I started to understand that I've been doing these little small actions in everything I've done. So I understood, like, we have the iceberg effect, right? Where we see that top of the iceberg, but we don't understand the depth of why. And the why is so important, because now I identify the why. Now I know that I'm only doing all I knew at the moment, right? My mom was only doing all she knew at that moment. So I have no regret. I can let it go. My brain was being programmed to think, to act, to respond a certain way. And I've been living my whole life around this false narrative. And it was,
Yeah.
now I understand the deeper underlying reason why. Now I can slowly start making those pivots and tweaks within my daily activities to bring me closer to the three things that's most important to me. So it was a journey. It was a journey, and I'm so happy that I actually went on this journey because I would say I am a 100 times better person than I would ever would have been. Like I'm so my family, my wife, our relationship is so strong. My kids, more important, my kids. I'm not a provider, right? I was a provider. Now I'm a leader, leading by example, right? And that was the biggest shift that I made, and it's made such a dramatic impact on my life because I went and I worked on myself.
Yeah, well, I truly want to acknowledge you for going out and getting the help and assistance that you needed, because a lot of people, including myself, decided to battle it by myself,
Mhm.
and that takes a lot longer, and you can suffer a lot more than having
Yeah.
somebody that you can speak to. But it's great that you also met the right person that was able to work with you and do that. So
Oh yeah.
I really want to acknowledge you for that. And it's funny because I'm wearing my t-shirt that says I do neuroplasticity, because it is always constantly
Mm,
reprogramming, right? Checking in, having a really high self-awareness level, and then understand why you do what you do. And you always have, like, it's never over. Like,
yeah.
I'm sure even today, you're
Mhm.
constantly checking in with yourself
Oh yeah.
to
Oh,
understand all your behaviors.
no, that's huge, and I don't know if you're aware what the neuroplasticity when you talk about our brain continues to grow. Like
Yep, absolutely.
it was studies that would say that the brain stops growing at 25 years. Their research has found that the brain continues to grow. And
Yeah,
then the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, that's so false.
yeah.
We're
That's
learning,
it's
we're learning.
absolute. Sorry.
Mhm. Go ahead.
It's absolutely why I do what I do with the 365
Exactly.
first challenge, because you have to keep learning, you have to keep
Mhm,
growing, you have to keep developing.
mhm,
It's never over,
mhm.
and otherwise you are stagnant, and your brain will just it's it's
Yeah,
actually lazy. Like, the brain is lazy because it's all about effectiveness.
exactly.
Keep learning, you keep growing, it
Mhm,
wants to find the most effective way to do that, and it will rewire itself to do that. And that's how you continue to get smarter. That's how you continue to be a
exactly.
better learner. And but you have to stay engaged with it. So I love the fact that you do that. Unfortunately, it came because of a major,
Yeah,
almost death event. But people can decide to do that without having such a
yeah.
big event. It's a decision. Like, you
It's
can
just-
decide to explore yourself and find out what it's all about. And yeah, so I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for sharing your story. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Now I was going to switch us into the first time lightning round. So if you got something else, we can talk
No,
about it.
that's it. I was just gonna just you know, I'm gonna say the same thing you said. I think it's fascinating how much we can grow and how much we can shift how we can reprogram our brain and how powerful our brain is. So everything you said is true. And even myself, being, I read a statistic. I was 67 more likely to be in jail than even be where I'm at, and to look behind me and see all these certificates and diplomas behind me, and to be, being able to do what I wanted to do all throughout my life just shows you that it's possible. And a lot of people just need that glimmer of hope, just knowing that we can do anything if we shift our focus on the right priorities.
Yeah, I love it. And you're an inspiration to your five boys, inspiration to your community, inspiration to all the people that you touch and reach out. And we can, in this lifetime, increase the human potential, like take it to the next level, if everyone shifts to that mindset and the understanding, and then apply themselves to it. And you can have a lot of fun doing it. Like, learning should be fun, like,
It's so fun. I
especially
love it. It's so
especially
fun.
especially when you're an adult and you get to pick and choose what you want
Mhm.
to learn and continue to
Yeah,
grow. I mean, it's all, and you can just keep trying different things
yeah,
and be like, oh, no, that's not it. I'm going to go try this. I'm going to try that. And each time you're learning, your brain is benefiting and you're
exactly,
having fun.
exactly.
It's like, and it's also like for me, what it shifted, because I went through a lot of failures and a lot of
Mhm,
depression, and life was a struggle. Like I had
mhm,
a hate more relationship towards life.
mhm.
And the shift that happened was that I started embracing and loving life and seeing that
Mm,
it had so much to offer
so much
instead of
offer.
finding it a struggle. But it was kind of like the same as you, where I was ambitious, I was driven, like I want to
Mhm,
get all of these things done. And I don't know if it was who I had it to prove it
mhm,
to, but it was just such a pursuit of success
mm.
that I like now. Don't get me wrong, I still want to be successful, but it's not the same.
Right.
It's not what defines me. It's not the end all to be
Mm,
all. Living, loving life, enjoying life, growing. That's so much more. It has so much more value. Because
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
I like to say this. We need to. I meditate a lot and I pray. I meditate. I'm a big spiritual person, but sometimes you just got to be a student of your not only yourself, but I found a newfound passion of being a student of my spouse. Like
yeah.
sitting back and understanding her. Because at one point I was a professor, and now I'm a student. Because think about it. How long does it take us to learn ourselves? So how long do you think it's going to take you to learn your spouse? So not only am I a student of my spouse, I'm a student of my kids. That's the constant learning that we should tap into. I want
Uh,
to understand them better so I can be a better leader. And sometimes we try to be that teacher when we should be a student. Keep ourselves in the student role.
I love that. I love that. Well, one of the recommendations that I made while everybody is confined with their family
Mhm,
is to reach out to them and find out what they
mhm,
know that they can teach you,
mhm.
right? So everyone can do an exchange of what they know, what skills or knowledge or interests that they have that they can teach.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how old someone is, where you know you're going to give them your attention, and they're going to
Mhm.
teach you, they're going to pass value on to you, you're going to pass value to them because you're
Mm,
truly listening.
yes.
And then you build those great ties in the
Yeah.
relationship and rapport. I hate reading the headlines of like people are hating
Hmm.
amongst the people that they love during this time. And it's like, hmm,
Not
we
right.
love the people at a distance. We should
Yeah.
love them, near and dear to us. Yeah, so that's one of the things I was like, people
You
should
know
really take the time
that's
to do that.
that's so that's so important. And I think it's just right now times it's so quiet for some people, and they're so used to living this fast life that they can't sit down and just be in this quiet moment. And I embrace these moments because you've been in the military, we've been isolated, we've been in positions where we had to be quiet, we had to sit there, sit back and self-reflect. So this is more of an opportunity for us. And go in that into this looking at it as an opportunity, then you'll find so much more than just I got to be in the house with my wife all day. This is a beautiful moment that we should be taking advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely agree. All right, so let's move and let's play the first time lightning round.
Mhm.
More stories out of you, perhaps. So the way
Uh,
that this works, I'm going to give you 10 different options. If it's something that you have done before, you would say up. So you would swipe up on the app. If it's something you've never done, not interested, then it's left. And if something you've never done, would do, then it's right. So if you
so
get
this is on the app.
yeah, so the 365 First Challenge app, it's all about making a list of things you've never done before. And that's the way that you swipe on the app.
Okay.
So, all right. So the first one is try parkour.
No, I've
No, never done it, not interested.
never done it. Yeah.
Okay, so that would be left if you don't
Yeah.
want to try it.
Okay.
Uh, go to a Mardi Gras parade.
I've done that.
Okay, so that'd be up.
Um,
Uh, what was your first Mardi Gras parade?
so I lived in New Orleans back in '91. So I've been to a Mardi Gras parade.
Okay. Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did you ever get to ride on the float?
Well, if you know Mardi Gras, um, yeah, it was good. It was good. It was good. We did Canal Street, Bourbon Street, and I didn't never got to ride on this float, but I got a lot of beads and candies and things of
Yeah,
that nature for the floats. So it was
awesome.
good.
Yeah, I spent a few years and I lived in New Orleans for a few years. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a very memorable time.
Mhm.
All right, swim with the dolphins.
Did I swim? I swam with sharks. Did I swim with dolphins? I'm trying to think. I don't think I swam. I swam with sharks. I don't think I ever swam with dolphins.
Oh, well, tell us about swimming with sharks. Where was that?
So I, me and my wife, we went to, what was it? Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. We like to travel a lot. And there was this excursion where you can actually swim with, there was nurse sharks. So pretty safe sharks to swim with. And so we just swam, had our little snorkels on, and we got to swim with the sharks and see them down there. So it was pretty cool.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Go to a wax museum.
Wax Museum. Yeah, so I've done that. Um, I we had a wax museum right next to a bar in St. Louis that I visited several times. So I have been to a wax museum. It's pretty cool. Also,
Is there any of the wax figures you got your picture taken with that you thought was pretty cool?
no, I didn't. I probably should have, but they had like Elvis Presley. It looked so real, so you couldn't tell the difference. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah. All right. Get a tattoo.
Oh, I have a lot of tattoos.
All
Can't even
right. All right. Uh, win a car in a contest.
Almost.
Almost.
I came really close while I was in the military. I applied at the exchange. You familiar with the exchange?
Yeah.
I applied at the exchange and I was one of the top 5 contestants. And we all had to put our key into the car. And if it started up, we got the car and my key didn't start. So
Oh,
almost.
that had to be so like
Yeah.
what did that feel like? Were you like scared, excited?
Like I was just holding the key and I was shaking and I was like, oh. But actually, it was so crazy because the guy that won, he actually a pretty successful guy, and he donated the car to charity. So it went,
Oh.
and I was so happy that it went to someone who actually needed it because I didn't need it at the time, but I wanted it.
Oh man, that's awesome. Okay. Shampoo carpets.
Every day, I do it all the time with 5 boys, and I have an English bulldog. I mean, sometimes on the hands and knees. So.
All right. Do embroidery.
No, never done it. I don't even like stitching. The military's made us do that stuff when we was in boot camp. I don't like
You don't
it.
like it. That's a left. All right. Watch a ballet.
Nah, too
That's a
too hot.
left. Not for you, huh?
Uh-uh.
Okay. Eat Russian cuisine.
Never been to Russia. Never tried Russian cuisine. I probably would try it though. I
All
am.
right. At
I would
least got
try
one
it.
right.
Yeah, I
That's
would try
a swipe right on that one.
it.
All right. Usually, so I usually out of 10, I want at least a couple ups, couple left, and couple rights. But my last, I had Renee, a friend of mine, on Friday, and all hers were either up or left, and I was like, "Come on!" So with you, I'm like, "Come on, I need one right." All right, eat Russian cuisine would be it. All right, so the other question is the prompt of the day, and the prompt of the day is: have you ever been fired or first time ever fired?
From a job.
Yeah.
Hmm. I almost got fired. I almost got fired, and what? So I worked in a restaurant right before I joined the Navy, and the owner of the restaurant's real popular restaurant in St. Louis area. The owner of the restaurant actually got into a argument with the manager, and the owner brought me in. And he was like, "Well, I'm gonna have to let you go." I was 18 years old. I was a hothead, and then I'm always big on like I gotta make this work because I have bills to pay. So I talked to guys like, hey, can I? I'm joining the military in a couple weeks. Can I just work, for the next month, to pay off my car payment, and then I was leaving anyway. And he was like, yeah, that works. So I renegotiated, and I saved my job and saved my car payment.
Smart kid. Good for you. Awesome.
That's it.
All right. So the final question is how, and I think we kind of talked about it, but how are you making the best of the current situation with the pandemic?
I'm using it as time to continue self-reflect, self-evaluate, reevaluate my life, but also I'm doing a lot of writing right now and also learning. This is a great time for me to sit down and learn, not only about my family, but also about what's out there. How can I help other people prepare for this moment? Because I was so prepared for this. Like I was ready for this. My mindset was ready for this, but a lot of people are struggling right now. So I want to understand how I can help better other people or help support people during times like this, because there's a possibility that a moment like this, a disruption like this, might happen again. So I want to help other people. So I'm doing a lot of writing, doing a lot of understanding how the mind, how the brain works to really educate myself to be able to help educate others in the future.
Oh, I love it. A very, very worthy cause and using your time. That is awesome. Well, thank you, Robert, for being on the show, taking the time to join me. It was great hearing your story and learning more about you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ann.